All right, at 6:31, I'll call the meeting to order. First up, modifications and changes to the agenda.
I have one.
What do you got?
We need to add, to talk about special projects and capital projects like we talked about the last meeting. So I don't care where you add
Right
me.
before managers?
Perfect.
9.5.
Thank you.
Anything else? All right, we'll move on to public comment. Is there nobody else on Zoom, right?
Heather, but she is for number 8.
Okay. Hearing nothing from the public, I'll move on to review and approval for the minutes of August 9th. If everyone got a chance to look over. Sandy, did you find any errors?
Nope.
Must be.
I found.
A resident proofreader.
All right, I'll hear a motion to accept.
Move we accept.
Sandy with the first, Leonard with the second. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
And those opposed, nay. All right. Next up, access permit for lots off Water Tower Road. Who is the applicant?
You
Dan and.
should have a copy of it now.
Yep.
But you just went past it.
Okay, I'm gonna recuse myself. The applicants are close relatives of mine, so I'll hand the meeting over to Vice Chair.
Okay, do we need to, anybody need a minute to go through them, or shall we?
Just verify that it's a different access permit.
Sandy,
Gary.
yours may be in your box. Grab it back.
Yeah, it
That-
just came. I'll
It
just
is a
read- I'll
different
read you
access
that.
I
permit.
can grab it.
Yes, this is for another, they sold a lot to another person for a house.
Okay.
So it's pretty much across from, is it Dean Scott's or one of the Scotts? It's right there across from the big rock. They're gonna put a road up through there. As I told Dan, there's already a blind drive ahead sign up in that location. He has to follow the B71, which is, a minimum of 15-inch culvert, follow the rules of, no more than 12, no, not smaller than 12 foot wide or no bigger than 24 foot wide. I also mentioned to Dan that probably we'd like to do, if we could, is use one driveway for like 2 lots, so we don't have multiple driveways along that whole stretch. So that was one of my recommendations, that if you could put one driveway that could share coming in off the road and then branch off to each lot, I would recommend that. I know Joey does the same thing in Enosburg town, that he doesn't like to have multiple, driveways down the, 3-4 driveways all in a row, like, so it looks kind of just a safety hazard.
Yeah, that
Yeah.
makes a lot of sense, I drive Water Tower quite a lot, and, yeah.
Yeah, that makes sense.
I don't see a problem with it. Again, he's got one lot. They're gonna end up drilling a well way out, they're way up on top, and they're gonna have probably a leach field, so they're not gonna use any of our services up there anyways. And they have the other permit was for that. The first permit we had was, the first permit was for that lot up by Wayne's World, but that's no longer because I guess they sold that property. Then they had the second permit was for the log landing and the sugar pump house. This is the third access they've asked for.
Okay. Any more questions?
I think as long as the driveway deal is followed, that sounds like it should be fine. I think that sharing that is a very smart move.
Yeah.
So, make a motion.
I'll move we accept.
Is there a second?
Second. One or the
All
other.
those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Okay. And I will turn the meeting back over to Sam, our chair.
Thank you, Heather. All right.
Thanks, Gary.
Thank you.
Thanks.
All right, up next we have windows and control panels to sell or recycle.
Again, nothing huge here. We just have those big windows that came out of the 42.
What size are they?
They're big.
They're
They're
like
probably 8
8
feet by
to-
4 or something.
Yeah, they're 8 feet tall, they're huge.
Well, for somebody's project, they might be quite perfect.
Greenhouse.
Yeah.
Big enough window.
Yeah.
I think they're 10 by 6. I think they're 10 by 6. They're single pane. They're not very efficient. They're not very heat efficient.
No, they're not.
Somebody building a gazebo?
So just throwing it out there if anybody.
How many?
I think there's
2, 4, there's at least
7.
Yeah, at least least 6 or 7.
6 or 7 of them. So if,
Have we put it anywhere? Front porch forum,
I haven't,
Facebook?
other than, what do they look like? I think I see it from there.
Single pane.
Yeah,
Yep.
you still have.
But if somebody wanted to build a gazebo in their yard, that size would be perfect.
Yeah.
Build a frame.
So, if they, I guess this request, just like the lawnmower and stuff, if we get a couple bucks for them, we'll probably put it towards the pizza place or something, or, and then the same with the controls that we took out of the Kendall that will no longer be used. We've heard they could be used for parts or backups for some hydros out there in the world. So we're just kind of putting it out there, and
Anything in them worth melting?
anything worth what?
Melting?
Melting?
Mm-hmm. Like platinum or gold or anything else in there?
I don't think so, no, not in those, they're not super old,
Mhm.
so.
I think you'd probably have better luck with the windows.
Yeah, well, I mean, it's one of those things that we've reached out, there may be some of them wants them for backup, but
What's the control panels worth?
I've only heard a couple $100, I mean,
That's probably something to sit on it for 6 months or so if you don't get any bites. Just
that's what we're gonna do, recycle them, yeah.
Get like Rick down here, all the Dodgies.
yeah. As far as the windows go,
I don't think I have a picture of this.
I mean, we have a
Somebody say
Facebook
one.
page, it might be worth a shot.
I
yeah.
just sent a message to somebody who might be interested. So,
Yeah, same deal. Whatever they want to go.
Make us an offer.
Yeah,
We're reasonable people.
alright,
Don't take the first dollar donation you get.
I'm gonna wait it out a little bit.
I'd be happy
I mean,
with
they're
it
not
first,
taking
like,
up
thanks
space
for
or
getting
anything,
rid
we are
of
just trying to clean out a little bit
Yeah.
and get some things out of the way, so,
John's
Places.
cleaning house,
yeah,
Good.
getting rid of shit.
so.
Okay.
Yeah, it's that simple.
All right. Policy change to honor Veterans Day on the first Monday following the federally observed holiday. Veterans Day is currently
Friday,
has been observed.
November
all
11th.
over the village.
11/11/11.
Right, so I guess the request, this had been done in the past, but then previous management decided not to go back to honoring it. Now we're asking the request to honor Veterans Day, which is a holiday we already do honor, just on that Monday, not on Veterans Day.
Not on that day.
And generally speaking, most places do observe it that Monday, that's correct?
Well, other than military.
Other than, yeah.
And they get
Yeah.
really cranky about it.
Yeah. We asked our veterans and they were all game that Monday would be the day.
All right.
We verified with the veterans.
As long as they're happy,
Okay, we verified with all the veterans.
you know, we closed for the ones that never came home. The least we could do is honor the ones that were unlucky enough to make it back home with all the problems they came home with.
Right.
That'd be paid day off.
Yeah.
It already is.
It already
It's- we
is,
already
changes
honored
when
Friday
it.
they're-
to Monday.
It's just
We
when
just
we're,
wanna set a
oh,
specific
oh.
We're
day.
just changing the day that we
yeah.
wanna have it.
Yeah, if you guys want to do Monday.
Rather than on the 11th itself.
So anything we have to do, like, that's not something that we have to put in the newspaper.
No, it's in our policy that we observe Veterans Day, it doesn't say when we observe it,
Okay.
just that Veterans Day is a recognized
do.
holiday. Yeah,
No, I don't have any issues with that.
Yeah.
No, and that's what means most of the public is what we do. I don't think they care when.
kind of, go ahead, I'm sorry.
Do we have to move on it, or does it matter?
probably make a motion just to be safe, we'll have it in the minutes just if anything comes up.
I'll move.
Eli,
Second.
Heather the second, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, nay. Okay, that's unanimous. You wanna go right to Friday after Thanksgiving?
Yeah, so I guess again, this has been a long-standing tradition that we ask, I'm hearing we ask every year and then I guess asking again, so.
And we want it every year.
So I guess traditionally the Thursday after, or the Friday after Thanksgiving is,
You be
they
quiet
close
over
the
there.
offices,
They all wanna go
however,
Black Friday shopping.
Right.
No, we don't.
this is not,
Recover from
Everyone's
from
got
get
ones.
together.
this is covered by
Long
personal.
weekend for deer hunting.
I
Yeah.
knew that was coming.
It's covered by everybody's personal day.
Seems like we should do it for like everybody except the public works director.
I'm okay with that.
No, John would call me every year to ask if it's okay, and
Can we, since we're on that topic, since we're looking at redoing the personnel policy, can we just write that into the personnel policy so we don't have to have this discussion every year?
Yep.
That makes perfect
Yeah.
sense.
Okay.
I guess
It's all that easy,
everybody's
huh? Yeah, I'm good with it.
move again.
Yeah, actually, Eli, would you like to make a motion to revise the personnel policy to include the closure of the offices and such on Friday after Thanksgiving with employees using personal day to cover that time?
Sounds good move.
All right.
Second.
Okay, with a second, all those like that idea, say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, nay.
Thank you.
All right.
I'll take one thing off your checklist, John.
All right, let's talk about that solar project.
Fine.
So we have Heather from Delta on. Ralph heard was gonna join.
We're a little
but-
bit ahead.
Yeah, I told him 6:45-ish, because we had some other items, so I can start my portion of it. And then if Heather wants to jump in, and then if Ralph wants to jump in when if he gets on. So, kind of an update, we did have a visit with, Encore, Jesse Stoll, Heather from DEPSA came up, and Ralph with, Encore as well came up. So, if you look at the map, and I honestly can't remember when we kind of talked solar last time. So if you look on the picture that I handed out, to the left of the panels, so this is the proposed project right here, kind of as it was first proposed to us from, Encore.
I didn't realize there was a giant field there already.
So if you look to the left, that is actually the neighboring property. And I went and spoke with a lady.
This is in the black oval.
Is it just not a oval?
Yeah.
Oh yeah, this is the black oval. So that tree line is the property line. So I went and spoke with a lady, and she's very interested. And I was very surprised, because we mentioned, well, maybe having to take out that tree line, and she said, nope, cut it all down. So we would basically cut that tree line out, and then basically extend the panels over into her property.
And we would do, what's the map, they have the same on there, okay.
And then, yeah, we would then be getting, so it's gonna increase, Heather, maybe you have that number off the top, I think it was 800K
Yeah,
kilowatts.
700-800.
More.
Sorry. Yeah, what was the number that you were looking for, the
Do you remember
interconnection cost?
what Jesse, Jesse threw out kind of a number he thought would increase if we went across on the map into the neighboring property.
I think it was like 800 kilowatts, wasn't it?
800.
I'm looking,
Or megawatt.
Didn't you say like 40%, John? You increased about 40%?
No, it wasn't that much, it was about 800 kilowatts, I believe.
They were gonna re-engineer anyway and get us a number on that, but it was gonna be, I think it was gonna be 800 kilowatts total, but I think it was about 400 more. And then we wouldn't have to do the other portion of solar panels down by our,
The
one
front,
down on the
yeah,
right,
the
the
front section would actually cost us a lot more because we'd have to connect the two projects. So it's actually, in the long run, kind of more cost effective to just extend it out. Plus,
Yeah.
we're getting more out of that area than what we would be from the smaller field
And like
down
just
below.
going up with the roof instead of adding on.
Correct.
So what are we thinking with the neighboring property, like a long-term lease or purchase?
so essentially it would be, essentially it would go right through Encore. They would be talking to her about the lease. It wouldn't even be end with us. It would be with them. So I've got her email address, introduced her, I guess, virtually with Jesse, with Encore. So he's gonna put together some stuff and we're gonna go visit with her and again, make sure she's on board and go from there.
But what if this, what if this lady sells her property?
It would go with
The
it.
the lease was, they would still have to honor the lease.
They'd have to honor the lease.
Yeah, I mean, obviously, at this point, she'd have to read through the release, probably get a lawyer and, and she's gonna probably cross her i's, dot her t's or whatever,
How
but,
old is she?
how old is she?
Mhm.
You make me make a guess on ladies' age.
Yeah.
Unpublic? If I had to
Well, I'm
guess,
not getting a dog because it would probably outlive me, so you get my drift?
okay.
Well,
No, it'd be close. I would have to
Because you have
say,
to think about that part too, and what might happen.
yeah.
You know.
Again, that would be up to her and her section of the
Yeah.
lease, I guess. But yeah, you're right. I mean, we don't want to go down in 4 years, have to take down half these panels. No, I would have to say late 50s.
Okay, well, you got some time.
I mean, they're probably not 40-year panels anyway, are they?
It'd be 25-year
20 to
lease.
25.
Oh,
So
okay.
have
So
some.
you like me and
25
so spring
year
chicken.
lease.
How long has this project been in the works for? Because I can't seem to
So
remember.
I had
talking about
mentioned
that.
it to you before John started. You guys gave me the green light to go forward with looking into it's gonna be in some of the manager's notes. And then.
We just talked about it last
we just
time.
talked-
Right, yeah, but,
Oh,
yeah.
like-
I didn't know that we had like specifics. No, that would be a good spot for it. I think it's southern facing, I believe, right?
And it's kind of out of sight, out of mind
Right.
for that purpose. I mean, you cannot see it from the road, which I think is a little bit of a perk. And the one thing I'm being a stickler on wanting to do is pollinator field. So in between the panels, we'll plant like pollinator habitat essentially. So that'll keep us from having to worry about any, maintenance or anything, and just has the benefits. And Ralph is on.
Yeah, so Ralph with Encore, I don't know if you're listening in, Ralph, but if you had anything to add, or if you had done if you folks had done any more preliminary work since we've, kind of gotten the first okay on that other property.
Yeah, can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay, great. Yeah, I was a little delayed here. We're having one heck of a rainstorm down here. I'm in Brattleboro. Yeah, I mean, we've been working on the engineering design and looking at a couple of different scenarios, using and not using the adjoining field. It's a pretty straightforward build. The fact that the field is already clear makes it easy to see the land, and we would go through all the normal steps of design and permitting. We've taken those first few steps. And then I also saw that a draft of the power purchase agreement had been sent to, I guess, to you and to VIPSA. I'm happy to answer any questions that might have arisen when you took a look at that. And I don't really have too much to add. I think that we would get into some of the nitty-gritty in terms of the exact location of the rows and access road and things like that once we got a little bit further down the road with design.
It's, I just want to add a couple things. We are going to be looking for kind of a yay or nay to move forward with this project tonight, because we're up against the clock to do some of the environmental studies that need to happen up there. And if we don't, if you guys give us the green light tonight, I believe from the email I saw this afternoon that Encore already has people scheduled to start doing some of the studies at the end of this week. If we miss that window to start these studies now, we're talking maybe June of next year, and then we're pushing this whole project off essentially another year. And I know I mentioned this when we first started talking about it, but with some of the current laws having to go more green energy, this is kind of a benefit to us getting a lot of the tier credits that we need to purchase towards the renewable energy standard and everything that we have. So it's kind of getting us prepared for what's coming and having to look at the power that we're purchasing or generating to have it be more green. So it's in line with, I think, the set plan that I know John had sent everybody.
Yeah, this is Heather. I'd like to just say that I do have kind of a preliminary economic analysis of the project. It is favorable to the project. So if people have questions about what that looks like, feel free to ask questions.
That was actually mine.
Go ahead, Rob.
Yeah, I just wanted to add one thing to what Abby just said. The deadline for doing rare, threatened, and endangered species inventories, according to the Agency of Natural Resources, is September 15th, which is the day after tomorrow. And we did manage to schedule our environmental consultants last minute to squeeze in we call it RTE survey for Thursday. And they would get in just under the wire. What it's mostly about is rare plants. Sometimes it's other things, but usually it's rare plants. Some of the other studies can go later in the fall, like for example, delineating wetlands, looking at deer and bear habitat, that type of thing. But you know, if we do get a green light this evening, then we'll tell our consultants, go for it, and they'll be out there the day after tomorrow, and they'll get in under the deadline for RTE.
I mean, I think renewable energy is definitely the future. This is a great idea, but my main concern is where exactly is the funding going to be coming from?
So the way that it's, you wanna do it or you want me to?
Go ahead.
I'm happy to talk about it too.
Yeah, go ahead, Heather.
Yeah, we'll let you do it, Heather.
Yeah, so the way that this would work is, Ralph mentioned a PPA, a purchase power agreement. And basically it would be very similar to any of the other purchase power agreements that Enosburg is a part of, where you have a certain rate for the number of kilowatt hours that are generated for the project. And in this instance, I think the most recent letter of intent that I got, it was $114 per megawatt hour. Ralph, correct me if there's a different one that I'm not seeing, but
That's the one. Yep.
yeah, and that just, I think, increased a little bit just because there were higher interconnection costs that are kind of wrapped up in that that purchase power agreement. So there's no funding. It's just, you don't have to put up any money up front. It's just as the project generates electricity, you will pay for the electricity that's generated, and you get all of the benefits that come along with that. That's the energy itself, which is essentially reducing your load. You get the renewable energy credits associated with that. You get, I don't know how familiar you are with capacity and transmission, but those are basically additional markets within the New England system that cost utilities money. And behind what's called behind the meter generation, like solar, like this project, can help reduce those costs. So yeah, you get all of the benefits associated with the solar project, and it's basically pay every month, just like all of the other purchase power agreements.
So would Encore then be owning the equipment and the panels and leasing the land off the village? Is that how that's gonna work?
Ralph, I think you're a better person to answer this than me.
Yeah, I think nowadays with all the arrays that we develop, our goal is to own them. And that works in some cases. In other cases, we bring in an investor, but we still typically have the long-term operations and maintenance contract. So we don't disappear from the picture. But the trend in recent years for us, and the goal that we're aiming for, is to basically own everything that we build and operate it for the long term. And I don't know exactly how that's going to fall on either side of that choice in this particular case. Heather, you may know more because you've been speaking about it with Jesse.
I don't know specifically about this project. I do know that with all of the other projects that we've done with Encore, there has been a third, and you may have different language for this, Ralph. I'm sorry if I'm using language that isn't in line with what you use, but you know, I would describe it as a third party financing body, and they end up owning the project itself, and Encore kind of gets the project stood up with all of the regulatory, you know, red tape, and actually the, you know, constructing the project and up through interconnection, and then things are handed off to the third party. And in all of the other projects that we've done with Encore, you know, we're being invoiced and working with that that third party for questions regarding maintenance and things like that.
Mhm.
But yeah, I'm not sure what the plan is for this. Sorry, go ahead.
What happens, I'm just, our water well safe, or I hate to say it, what happens if we need to drill a new well, we have to move some panels to drill a well? How does that work?
Hmm.
I mean, it is our water wells and stuff, and say our well goes bad and we have to drill another well, and we may have to move some panels. How does that work?
Have you had to do that before? And
No,
what
I'm
sort of
just
distance are
thinking-
you talking about?
I'm just thinking out of the box in case something happens down the road.
Hmm. Yeah, that would be a
Well, we
tough one. I don't know off the top of my head what the answer is. We'd have to look into that more closely.
Right, I'm trying to think just down the road, if some, it probably will never happen, but what happened if?
Yeah, no, Gary, I think the easiest way to do that would be set up our water rights to trump any other easements that go into that property.
And I don't have enough room so we can work around that well, so we're have enough buffer where the panels start. I'd like at least-
They have already
Yeah, we
agreed
talked
to
about
the
that already.
buffer, if you're looking at the map, cause our well is down here, these first probably 4 panels, 3 to 4 panels near the bottom will come out, so that there will be the buffer. I don't have that updated map yet, but that's already been discussed and settled and agreed on.
All right, so I'm assuming we are going to,
You're agreeing basically to, so your short answer is yes, we're leasing them the land. But at the end of the day, that's kind of what is happening, we're just leasing them the land, then generate solar to power to come back to us.
right, so
Um,
instead of them paying us a dividend, they would pay us some power essentially?
We are purchasing the power, this is the way that we're kind of paying for this project. We would buy the power at $114, whatever's on that sheet, the PPA rate.
Yeah, it was-
We would purchase it at that rate, which may look like a lot, but we're talking right now, they're predicting this winter it's gonna be $300. So that's actually not a terrible price for the way that the market has been. It saves us from having to buy power on the open market where the prices are so unpredictable and volatile that it's horrifying to watch. So that's how we essentially pay for this project, in essence, is this PPA rate.
So does all of the power generated from this solar field go into our system? That way we're not.
Heather, can you answer that one?
So there's no transmission costs associated with
Right,
that?
it's just,
going
it's
directly to
essentially like
the-
our hydros, it's behind the meter, so as they generate, we're not having to buy
Off the
now
market.
off the
Right,
market, because
right.
that's producing X, so now we don't have to go out and find that and buy
But it's
it.
not like not like this generated power is going into Velco's transmission lines in which we're buying it
No.
directly back from
You
Velco.
mean like going on?
So we're saving all of that cost.
Yeah, that's what one of the things Heather said, the
This
transmission.
is sort of like
costs.
if we all of a sudden had 2 rivers.
Right.
2 more hydros.
So yeah, I can definitely see that paying off in the long run. As far as infrastructure goes for transmitting this power, do we have ample?
Well, that's why we had to make this adjustment here, and this number's pretty high, because, I mean, we're hoping that either we'll be doing it internally, this is if we contract out.
We do have to upgrade the lines,
All the way out
On
from.
Reservoir
But it's
Road
still,
and
it's only
Waterford.
what, 3 miles?
but that's
2
also,
miles?
that's also in kind of the long-term plan anyway. It would just be moving it up to upgrade those lines anyway.
So where would we have a transmission station down?
We wouldn't, it would just tie in
We
all the way
wouldn't need
back
one?
to the substation there. But we'd have to upgrade the lines, basically from the Jolly all the way up through so that we can feed it back through to the substation. And that's where that extra cost came in, is to cover that. Again, that's high if we that's if we contracted it all out.
But the project is still favorable even using that high number.
Correct.
Now, Heather, is that dollar amount, is the Rex built into that or no? I mean, is that?
So the way that the PPA works is that $114 per megawatt hour encompasses all of the benefits of that system. So energy, renewable energy credits, and any capacity or transmission savings. And we have a tool that we've built that can value all of those things over the 25-year life of the project. I don't know if anyone's heard of a Monte Carlo analysis. It's like analyst speak for an analysis that is able to run a bunch of different options. So we can say, okay, well, this winter, we think, prices are going to be really high. We know that. But what's going to happen in the future? What happens if prices, energy prices are lower? What happens if rec prices are higher? So we're able to look at a lot of different scenarios so that we can get a really good picture of what the actual economic benefit of the project is going to be. And that takes into account energy, it takes into account RECs, it takes into account capacity and transmission. And basically, at this PPA rate, we're looking at around $50 per megawatt hour benefit to Enosburg. So for every megawatt hour that's generated, yes, you're paying $114, but you're going to get back about $165. Does that make sense?
Yep.
And another thing, we're looking at the monetary value of these things, but there's also, in my opinion, a lot of value in the tier 2 renewable energy credits, because that, within the renewable energy standard, that requirement, that obligation is increasing pretty quickly. And, we need to, VEPSA as a whole really needs to get more projects like this to make sure we have enough tier 2 credits for all of our members. That could be a really expensive proposition if we don't get these. So, Enosburg, by doing this, you're putting yourselves in a really good position to make sure that you have those tier 2 RECs to comply with the renewable energy standard.
Because if we don't have enough RECs, then we have to purchase those RECs, and they're not cheap, and they add up very, very quickly.
And that's what we were talking about last
Yes.
meeting about trading credits and.
Yep,
What's the lifespan on this?
it's a 25-year lease.
How
25-year lease, but what about the solar panels?
Themselves.
So I can speak. So the panels themselves are, they are warranted by the manufacturer for 25 years. And in the lease, we usually put in several 5-year extension options to be, bridges to cross when we come to them. The useful life of an array like this is probably closer to 35 to 40 years. And we haven't gotten there yet, because most of these arrays were only built in the last 10 years or so. But we're anticipating that, with most landlords and most off-takers, which are what we call the people who use the electricity from our arrays, after 25 years, in most cases, people will be fine about extending that lease and just continuing to benefit from the array for another 5 or 10 to 15 years into the future.
How does the efficiency of the panels hold up?
We figure that there's about a 0.5% decline each year in the output of the panels. But that means that, after 20 years, they're still, cranking along at something like 80% of or 85% of total capacity.
Well, and another thing to think about when you're thinking about how the panels degrade is that you're still only paying per unit of energy that's generated. So if the panels maintain, 100% efficiency, then great. If that drops to 50% of the original output, we would obviously take that into account when we're looking at your power supply, but you're still only paying for whatever energy is generated. So it's not going to affect you in a negative way in that regard.
That would be 50% more power we'd have to purchase outside though.
Yeah, and that's what,
At a higher
that's with anything that, with any purchase power agreement, the volumes change or can change over time. So that's something that we have built into our budget models, that we know there's a 0.5% degradation year on year. So we're aware of that, and we take that into account when we're looking at you know, what your loads are, what your energy coverage ratios are, what type of purchase power agreements you'll need in the future.
And we run into that now, in all honesty, with our hydros, depending on the flow of the rivers, where our purchase power budgets have been higher the last 3 to 4 years because we've been in such a drought that we aren't producing anywhere near where we would if we had steady flows. So it is a gamble. A little bit.
Is there a buyout option at the end of the 25-year lease for the village?
That's a good question. I don't know. I'd have to go back and look at the lease. I don't think there was anything in the PPA. So we can explore that. We'll have to get back to you about whether or not there's a buyout option. Yes.
I got a question. I know you mentioned about, if we improve the property, in your experience, the taxes go up very much if you improve that property. I know Berkshire will probably, instead of have a solar field instead of an empty meadow, would they increase the taxes on that property?
I don't know the number off the top of my head, but a bill was passed by the legislature, I want to say 2 years ago, that actually makes it impossible for towns to double dip, so to speak. There is a local solar tax and there's a state solar tax. Local solar tax is, goes into the town's revenue stream, and the state goes into the state education fund. And the idea is that should be enough taxation for both local and state government on the equipment itself, not the underlying property tax, but the equipment itself. And the
I don't know,
town,
because you're,
the town is
know if
not
you're-
supposed to change the
Right.
underlying property.
okay, I didn't know if they'd increase the taxes on that property because we have a solar field now.
It should not. And I can get back to you with the exact
Just a
bill
question, I'm
number.
just curious
Yep.
what costs are.
Yep. Yeah, and,
Would that
and
be,
it's worth mentioning that because the property's in Berkshire, there is some local tax benefit as well to the town, but unfortunately it's not to Enosburg Falls, it's to the next town over because of where the array is located.
If we move forward with the study for the endangered stuff, that's not locking us into the contract long-term,
No.
correct?
Just the study itself.
This is the LOI just to continue
Yeah.
looking into
So,
the process.
The contract would come much in the
Right.
future.
This is just a letter of intent to move forward to make sure that all the ducks are gonna line up, essentially.
Yeah,
Hopefully
no,
not
no endangered
figuratively.
ducks.
Yeah,
No,
no
I don't-
endangered ones, to be able to do this project up there.
I
So,
mean, by the way that it sounds, I think this is pretty much exactly what we're looking for. I have no issues with moving forward.
I just had a question on timeline, like would we be looking at panels going up next year, or is it like even a year further out?
I can speak to that. We have to apply for a certificate of public good from the state, from the PUC, and they could process this in anywhere from 3 to 12 months. It's a little unpredictable, but I think that if we were to get the necessary studies and design work done this fall, get the CPG application in by the end of the fall, it's conceivable that we could start building by mid 2023. I suspect it would be probably during the fall.
It'll take about 4 to 6 months to build the whole project once we get past that process and we start, so.
I think that's accurate. Yep.
So by 2024, maybe, we can
Maybe.
have it online, if we hurry up.
I definitely like the idea of extending into that other property and skipping the separate. Now you got 2 headaches.
Yeah.
Put it all into one.
The initial thought process was to kind of maximize you know, to put as many panels up as we can. But now that we know that it's an option, that makes, I'm all for scrapping that lower field, plus one of the water lines runs underneath, so we have some logistics that would have to be addressed if we went down there.
I think that makes
And
perfect
it
sense.
costs more to connect.
Yep.
So that distance than just to extend out, and it's the perfect spot up there to clear that, just like thin line of trees out and then extend it over.
So whether or not we do end up with that property next door, if we give you the green light tonight, would you be, I guess, doing all your research based on predicting that we would have that separate field as well? So our capacity would be big enough to handle both fields instead of just the one?
Oh, I think so. I think there's more than enough appetite for the power. I guess, do you have a sense of how long it would take to know whether or not we would have access to that other field or not?
The lady is very forthcoming with, I mean, I'd have to talk to Jessie and get her some more details on the exact project. I mean, she's very open to, like I said, having us get up there and clear those trees and sign the lease. The only thing, I think she's in current use, so I know that's not a game changer, but just would have to look into that. So yeah, as soon as I get the information from Jessie or whatever you guys need to show her, we probably want to do that sooner than later. But again, she's very open to it all at this point, so we just got to get it to her and sit down and talk with her.
That would be great, because the sooner the better, just because it would be nice to know what the shape and size of the array is going to be for surveys and additional environmental studies and that kind of thing. And also, we would take care of withdrawing that footprint, that additional footprint from current use. We would pay the penalty, and we would, we'd submit the application form to the Department of Taxes to have that pulled out of current use. Just the bit that ends up under the array.
Yeah, it sounds like wherever her property was, I think she's from Massachusetts area or something. Wherever the property was she came from, she had done this process. So she's been through it once, so she kind of understands it.
Great.
And she just didn't know like if there was different laws or rules in Vermont, but she has been through the same process, so she again understands kind of the concept of it for sure.
Great.
So
Either way, I think this is a good idea. What do you all think?
Moving forward.
Definitely.
Like it.
Let's do
So we
this.
have a green light?
Yeah.
Okay to sign a letter of intent?
Do we need a motion or just general approval? Support.
Is there only one signatory on that letter of intent?
I think it's actually, this one specifically, it would be signed with VEPSA.
Yeah.
So we just they just need you guys to say, yes, continue moving forward at this point in time.
Let's do it.
Yes.
I think we got yeses from everybody.
Continue moving forward.
See.
yeah, and the other part of this too, which I'm going to start hopefully working with Steve Farnham with VEPSA as well, and maybe and Heather, and if she has thoughts, start forecasting what load looks like per home as we start to get more electric cars, more electric everything, because that's what we're getting pushed into doing. So we have to start looking at the load, even though in the village we're not going to start building 100 houses, there's no room for it, but still per home there's going to be a lot more usage. So
Well, I know the hotel's 2 chargers are busy a
yeah,
lot already.
And any energy generated within our system is good profit for us, so.
Yep.
Gotta look at the bottom line.
Excellent.
All right, is that all we had?
That's it.
Great.
Thanks very much. That's very exciting.
yeah, Heather, thank you, Ralph.
Thank you. I'll work with Ken on the letter of intent.
Perfect,
Great.
thank you, Heather.
Sounds
right.
good. Have a good night, guys.
Good
You
night,
too.
everybody. Thank
Bye.
you so much.
Cool.
Our screen's frozen.
All right, up next, retention policy, cleaning out of old records.
All right, so as of this moment in time, the village does not have a retention policy for any of our documents, so when we're switching over every year, it goes in a box, it goes in a room up at 42 Village Drive, and then so on and so forth. We've got boxes of financial records back to the late 80s. Yeah, there's a whole, the second and even up onto the third floor up there. There is.
The IRS is laughing at you.
It pretty much at this point, it's kind of ridiculous, I won't lie. So I spent some time, Secretary of State's office, State Archive, kind of going through. This policy is a sample policy that they recommend. I just curtailed it to us. And then the spreadsheet in the very back, the retention plan, covers basically every document that comes through this office. We may have to make some adjustments on that just in case we're missing something, but I've gone through it and I think we're pretty well.
Do we have that?
Is it in the inner office?
No, it's in the pile, that I had.
Under the pumpkin pile?
Under my pumpkin pile,
Oh, okay.
yep, my pumpkin pile.
So the phase out period would be different depending on what kind of document it is.
Yeah, basically, for the most part of what we're gonna follow is 7 years. It's typical with the financials. Some of the payroll stuff we have to keep always. There's a lot of stuff that's listed in here that would kind of affect like the town clerk's office a little bit more. I tried to clean it up as much as I could to what kind of pertained to us. But for the most part, everything's 3 to 7 years, but the way that we box up our financials is basically every 7 years, and then we'll get rid of it. So right now, we need to, if you guys are good with this policy, we'll get secure shred scheduled and go to town cleaning out 42, because it's ridiculous.
It's time. Dear God, even the IRS is laughing even.
I'm just trying to find minutes.
Those we don't get rid of, those have to stay.
Okay, that was my question.
Yep, nope, those have to
When I
stay.
have a question about why we ended up with whatever property that we currently figured out that we have, I want to be able to.
No, the minutes are permanent.
Alright, so is none of this electronic?
None of like our records.
Yeah,
I like all this stuff.
right, because, I mean,
All of that
Like minutes
goes
and
into
everything
a
can be-
file. Yeah, obviously we can access it, but a lot of it, just paper copies, a lot of it can be recycled after a year or two. There's a lot of stuff that we can have to keep for the 3 to 7 years, but,
yeah, and that can't be kept electronically? That way there's not boxes and boxes?
no. It's not as bad as you would think after the end of a fiscal year. I mean, we probably pull out a year. Well, my office alone, I probably have 3. We're probably about 10 boxes every year.
This is your typical banker's box?
And this is your typical banker's box. I mean, our cash receipts, journal vouchers, accounts payable. Some of the accounts payable is a little bit redundant, but that's because we have to follow the process of you guys signing off on stuff, so.
Right, but just like check stubs, they gotta be,
We don't really keep, the check stubs are attached to the AP invoice,
right, they said you gotta keep them for 7 years.
correct?
But
It's like,
And that's
I know if you ever have an
something
issue with a check, you can look it up on whatever financial software you have, because it had to be printed off, right?
It is handy to actually have the check, like we do reference back to the check stub occasionally, because the way our software is, it can be a little wonky at times. So.
Yeah, and I think it's kind of like a backup system.
Yeah, if the system goes down, so it's pretty standard.
Yeah, at the
Yeah.
supervisory union, we have to keep stuff for 7 years.
It's the
minimum, so-
7 years is the standard
Yeah.
number that we
It
plan
is.
to.
If you're gonna get out of it, you've got 7 years to do it.
Yeah.
Oh, on your desk, on your spare table, I moved them out of the way.
And this is what the state recommends we would.
Yes, this is right from the state archive, right off their website. I did speak to them too and kind of have gone back and forth with them, so this is their recommended policy along with their retention plan.
Yep, yep.
So what's the correspondence part? That's just like general email correspondence that needs to be kept for a year?
Correspondence about contracts, regarding appointments or resignations, or just, they are until they're obsolete. So if John sends a memo for something pertaining to this Friday, after this Friday, we don't need it anymore.
No, it says expired plus 3 years.
Correspondence routine.
Well done, where did I?
until
Yeah,
August
first
30th.
Oh,
first.
wait,
And then
hold on.
1 year, so 1 year and then recycle, which we usually have a file of
Right,
numbers and
but-
stuff.
Any correspondence about contracts,
Yeah.
or appointments or resignations, it'd be 3 years.
Yeah.
Okay,
Or
yeah, I got it.
expired plus 3 years.
Okay,
Right.
see the difference there, awesome.
And the end goal is to get that area cleaned up. There's 2
And then to not ever let it get like it is right now.
archive rooms, we're calling them,
86 is a little much.
that we're trying to
And you're
condense.
talking, if you keep 10 boxes a year, you get 70 boxes, not 700 boxes.
Yeah.
It's, it's real bad. Al made me go up, I didn't wanna go up, but he made me go up and look in the room.
Well, I wanna go up because I wanna look for something.
You don't wanna go up, there was a hole in the roof and the pigeons
I've been
made a
told
hole
it was
in the
pretty
yard.
There's a hole in the roof and you're keeping paper documents under it?
This was pre-Gary Denton getting here, there
Yeah.
was, a hole, well, it wasn't right in that room, but there was a hole in the roof and the pigeons got in and other critters
Nice.
inhabited in there, so you don't wanna go up there, I
Well,
assure
they
you.
probably, yeah, what I'm looking for is concrete, so they probably didn't need that.
No problem. But, so if this looks good to you guys, I know it's a lot of language, but it's the standard.
It sounds like it's
We're gonna follow
time it
this
was done.
plan.
Sounds like you reviewed it pretty closely.
What's the adoption timeframe look like this? Is it immediate?
You guys say it looks good, it's in here, it's even actually in here, I put today's date, being optimistic that you guys are gonna approve it. So,
So we do have, if you're not aware, we do have Al back on light duty.
Oh, nice.
So
good.
that was gonna be, we got Gary, who's gonna be the quote muscle of the
Al's
project,
doing
and
okay?
Al's gonna be doing some of the
good.
filing.
Secure Shred's gonna pick that up?
we will call and schedule to have them come and do it, we just, like I said, once you guys make a motion to approve this policy, I will make Al stay by saying we can finally start throwing that stuff away.
Well, let's hear a
Speaking of
motion
retention, right?
to accept the new records management policy and retention plan.
I'll make the motion.
Eli had the first, Leonard had the second. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
And those opposed, nay.
Is this all paperwork that could be brought to West Rock?
No, some of it has to be shredded.
Sensitive.
It can't be, a lot of this cannot be recycled.
Okay, when it goes to West Rock,
Yeah.
you can watch it,
Go down in the sludge.
goes in the,
Oh, yeah.
Hopper 6.
We bring our cardboard, because we live not too far from there, we bring our cardboard and all our stuff over to them all the time.
Yeah,
Tyler used to work there, so we go over all the time and bring everything there.
no, but if there's somebody, from the office here that sees it go into Pauper 6, it's still gonna be shredded?
It has to be shredded. Per the archive policy, it has to be just shredded.
Once it's shredded, they can take it and dump it there.
Yeah.
Yeah, they could.
Yeah, so that's gonna be a lot of gerbil
Yeah.
stuff.
Right?
I
Chipmunk
don't
bedding.
know at first, so.
Yeah, I wouldn't fool around with any sensitive documents.
Well,
Just
yeah, but
have a professional company come in and shred it.
And then they just take it with them.
That way there's
don't
no question.
Right,
If somebody
then
says,
it's
hey
not-
Leonard, you took all these documents and somehow this got leaked.
they?
Like,
Right, yeah.
I mean, it wasn't me.
What about that one you didn't put in the hole?
Right.
yeah,
Yeah.
Left in the back of your truck, lid comes open, paper scattered all down the road, you get the picture.
I have no idea what you're talking about.
Did I get kicked out of Zoom? What is going on?
You gotta do CYB, cover your butt.
Yeah, exactly. All right,
Perfect, much appreciated on that, thank you.
up next, capital projects.
So I gave you guys all, there's 3 pages, but the last
These are all from
one.
each department.
But basically,
Look at this, more stuff to show.
for each department, the water department is first. These are projects that we've kind of sat down and talked about within the office. Doesn't necessarily mean all of this is going in the budget for next year. We're just trying to put together a list of projects. And then, so you got water department on top, highway general funds in the middle. I do have some notes. You'll see I have like questions and stuff there.
Are these according to urgency or just a
No,
list?
they're just a list.
Okay.
So I have,
Wastewater department is on there, and then the last page is electric department, and then there's kind of a few other. we'll call
And
them
the other village.
Random,
Like we have two.
other village Williamsburg Falls projects, so other projects that maybe will spread across all of the departments. Oh, I know what he's getting.
You wanna just run down right through them and?
So this is gonna be, hopefully,
Oh,
I'll be able to
the
bring
board.
this in. This is the goal.
The board.
We're gonna put all of the, like, this is my first stage. Psyche was not impressed with my artwork, so she's gonna help me.
Yeah, I can tell she didn't make that.
She didn't make this, so
You got Hannibal on top, so you're good.
yeah.
Yeah.
We got handle on top. So my goal is to have all of these on here a little bit neater, and then all the budgets, and then like where the grants are, so that we can we can go after a lot of grants because there are a lot of grants. But then tie them together so things may make sense. So you're
It's not
asking.
gonna look like a conspiracy board or something.
Well, I'm
You
being
want a
right.
crime
Like
scene
I'm in a
or-
murder room here. That's where are the perps on there.
So yeah, we'll have it so that, you know, what projects, so then we can kind of like visualize and talk through if there is certain projects, because we are working on like on Church Street. And then of course there's a couple other things that came up. Well, does it make sense to do it now? Do we tear it up and wait time or not? So,
That's
and then with like the EI, the whole Vital Village and a couple projects we do need to get done. You know, we're trying to make the village life as great as possible while we do all this work, because it is going to be quite intrusive. If it all comes to fruition over the next 5 years, so.
Yeah, we've survived stuff before.
Yeah, so again, that's what I'm working on, so then when you guys have questions, I can just bring this in, we can say, well, we're working on it, we're working at this point. But again, we'll get Psyche involved.
This is one of the perks of cleaning out upstairs.
Yeah, this is
Here,
upstairs.
There's an old drafting table that he moved to his office,
Yeah.
which I'm glad we reused because it's pretty cool. But yeah, this is
Because Gary
Atherton.
Atherton built this in high
Yeah.
school.
Oh, wow.
So
Cool.
we're repurposing it as our,
That's great. It would make him very happy.
yes.
So, to answer your question, Sam, yep, we can run through each one of these real quick. And also, if you guys have anything you want to add to this list, tonight's the night. I'll give you my timeline of what I'm in a perfect world coming up with in my head, gonna try to pull off this year. The department heads and I have a meeting again on September 30th. I missed last week's, I was out very sick, so, we're gonna meet again, go over this list one more time. They're kind of still working on putting together rough budget numbers. After the September 30th meeting, my game plan is for John and I to sit down with each department head individually, kind of run through their budget, if there's any major changes. I've got a handy dandy file going with a lot of stuff already. A lot of our vendors are starting to send notices on price increases and all that fun stuff. But my goal is to have a very rough draft budget done by the end of October that we will start talking about in early November.
Okay, so let's just start from the top and just have a quick conversation or answer any questions or whatever.
So,
All these.
I'll
So,
read it, do you want me to just read the first one and then, or how do you wanna do it, Sam?
well, so we gotta replace 1,000 feet of 2-inch galvanized pipe on West Birch. That's way down on the end towards.
Yeah, it's where we keep having all the leaks
Okay,
and all
so
the
that
problems.
can stay. They've been talking about that for years.
They're finishing the
minimally
engineering on
invasive,
that right
right?
now, and it's gonna be 100 to 200 grand for that. I do know the numbers on that. We're waiting for the final.
Okay.
Yep,
6-inch ductile iron pipe from the intersection of Village Drive to West Enosburg Road, to
So-
Orchard Street.
that is the.
That's Main
That's,
Street.
that's gonna be the one where they insert, right? That's the one that's, no.
No, that's sewer lines, this is
Okay.
water permit. So that,
But no, it's water.
yeah, but what
Yeah,
he's
go ahead,
talking
I'm
about
sorry.
is
Oh,
the
okay,
sewer.
okay. You don't wanna get those mixed up.
Yeah.
No, so that is replacing the water line. If we do Vital Village, that kind of ties in, which, is that on it twice? Yeah. And then we have to redo all of the services.
Right, so, okay. Is every one of these projects something that the department head wants to see done next year?
No,
So that's where, I think my little chart, once I get it done, we can go through this
Okay.
and get a visual of, because as you go down through it, yeah, there's gonna be things.
Right,
like-
because I'm seeing ripping up Main Street.
Right, so then part of this.
it's all gonna be logistically
Yeah.
done at the same time.
Yeah, if we do.
Right,
Vital
but not
Village-
next year.
No. Some of these, even if we approved it today, we're not even gonna start in 2024.
These all need to be engineered. So the West Berkshire Road, we had approved last year and in this budget year that we're in right now for the engineering to be finalized and done so that we can actually do that one next year. These other projects all need to be engineered, so like John said, we're looking at 2024.
Okay, so this is just a grand list then,
This
not
is just a
something,
grand list, not just for
not
next year.
engineering or groundwork that
The only
needs to be
thing that
done
we
next
do
year.
have, which I will I can get my big board, is where the projects that we do have, and we have Gary working on those, are the ones that we approved for the ARPA funds.
Right.
Which is the,
So,
Shipment overlay
so
makes it
to
hard.
save us some scratching our heads tonight, you wanna run down through and just make a note of what, if we agree, what needs to be either engineered or done
Yep.
next budget season, right?
for next budget year.
You're right, that's what we're talking about, right?
This is just in general, we are gonna have a conversation, as we get closer, list will be, when we get into the actual budgets, this list will be narrowed down for
Right.
you guys. This is just all the department heads kinda getting together, what's our list looking
This is
like
just
over the
the
next
nuance.
couple of years.
So if you'd like, I would recommend, give us the next meeting, and then we can probably sit there and go through and say,
Yeah.
this is what have to be done in order to Violet
We
Village,
can
we're gonna
add-
replace
We
this,
can add dates.
and we're working
Yes,
on
that would
budgets
be-
and dates and all
That'll be
that.
perfect.
Yeah,
And, or, yeah.
Thank you.
And you could even separate this out to like a 2023 budget
Yep.
and then a 2024, so we'd have a different, you know.
Yep,
Books of
this is
these
just a
things.
It's gonna
general,
look a
like,
lot less demanding now.
Right, well, I'm looking at it, I'm
It's
like,
whoa!
we're gonna replace
this
water
could be
line
the-
on Main Street, what?
Yeah, this
yeah,
could
no,
be the
this
next
is
5
just
years.
this is just here's all the projects we have on the table. Is there something else you guys wanna add to this? And then as we get into the budgets, we're gonna narrow this list down significantly.
So while we're on the topic, you said you have to upgrade the infrastructure to handle that solar array, is that included?
No, light,
I don't know that
I didn't
the
see
solar's on
it.
here.
yep,
Yes,
solar,
it is, the
Wells
second one down.
property.
Just
Oh,
the
okay.
solar project and whole, that's kind of being encompassed in that whole solar project.
Okay. So I'm assuming we're gonna have to eat all of the upgrade costs because they are lines.
No, that was built in.
Oh, it was?
That's what
Okay,
this
so-
is, so that's why that price went up, because we hadn't factored that.
So they're, how's that gonna work then? Are they gonna own all of that?
No, they wouldn't own that,
They're just paying for us stuff?
Exactly.
The reasoning behind part of that is that some of the new,
Yeah, they're gonna get.
some of the new
over
legislation
money
that's
from-
out there, some of the new incentives, there's tax credits that we can get for this, so by adding that in, we might be able to get a 30% tax credit. It's one of the
Because
new.
we're upgrading to go green?
Yeah, and it's one of,
Will they do
it's
that
one of
for
the
the area?
infrastructure rules that they have going on right now, that there's tax credits that municipalities used to not be able to get because we don't file taxes, but now we can file the paperwork to get these tax credits. So that's why we factored that into there.
And the other thing too, as you do look through this list, and it can be, because we'll prepare it to be more understanding of what projects would. However, a lot of these projects, especially with that new bill that was signed, we're gonna be looking at all the grants, and that's what we're trying to tie in, what grant money we can get. So some of these, as we budget it, we'll have money tied to it, so
Yeah.
the budget may be $1 million, but what we pay
Get all
out
we
of it may
can.
only be
And we just be our
$200,000.
match, whatever.
Yeah, I was gonna ask which ones of these were grant eligible.
So
I
we're,
tried to know on some of them, sorry John, I mean to talk over you, but I tried to know on some of them if we're gonna look at grants or what we're going to do, but like John said, there's a lot of money out there that we are gonna definitely try to utilize and not pay for as much of this as we can.
Yeah, absolutely,
We
yeah.
need to ask for as much as we can.
I think right now,
And
especially
those
with
that
that
ask are the
big
ones that
infrastructure
get.
bill, it's gonna be
The problem with the big infrastructure bills is that they're very specific, and we had a meeting with Wayne Elliott, which is one of our engineers from Aldrich and Elliott, and we have some money that's available to us, but then some of these other programs are very specific, so it's not as generous as what they said it was gonna be, but definitely there's still a ton of other options that we can explore with all of this too.
cool.
Shimmin overlay Maple Park and then the Upper Church Street sidewalk are on the radar for the spring, using ARPA money for those two projects. Still have Pearl Street, going to the new Armory office is still on there. I mean, we have sidewalk appropriation and there's an AARP grant that I'd like to apply.
And they're very generous.
And the catch with the AARP is it doesn't open until March, so we wouldn't know until mid next year if we have that money, but
We can still budget.
the question I wanted to ask on that too, is instead of stopping at the armory, can we just run it to connect to the sidewalk that is at the park and ride? If you see there's a sidewalk that kind of comes up, my thought process behind that is, you know, we're trying to be more community oriented, community minded, so maybe if we have the crosswalk connecting all the way up, you know, that might get utilized more for overflow parking and maybe not so much on the street if we have a nice sidewalk, that goes right up.
Well, then that would help for people getting, depending on where they got out of their cars, getting over to PT where there's never enough parking. So that's, you know, just good PR on our part.
That was my thought, instead of just stopping at and I did have Gary run the numbers both ways, stopping just at the armory and then running that extra 215 feet or whatever.
So I think the original idea was to do that, but remember that whole thing was kind of sprung on us, like, oh yeah, hey, we're moving here, we're gonna need a sidewalk this year.
Yeah.
We're like, well, damn, we can't afford a 500-foot sidewalk, we can do a 200 and whatever this year.
Yeah, so I had Gary run it both ways, so if we wanted to just focus on one section and then the other section. So we do have the dollar amounts both ways, but the AARP grant looks kind of perfect for this one specifically.
And it probably would be, if we could manage to do it all in one go, actually cost less, probably because you already have the people here.
It's always the struggle.
Yeah.
Always a little bit more than like, oh, great. Because yeah, we're gonna be doing some work on Church Street. We have Ryan.
Right, Magnet.
We did our crosswalk, so.
Yeah, how'd that come out?
Great.
Great, yeah.
Yeah, it looks good.
It's really nice.
It came out really
Some
awesome.
handprints in there.
Yep, he let us do her handprints, which actually looked really good, so I told her it was branded, it was officially hers, but the Bennetts were fantastic to work with on this, I'm really glad we were able to pull it off, and the fact that Ryan pulled it off, and the highway department, they need a lot of credit too, the highway guys painted that and did a lot of work,
It sounds like everything came together.
to get that ready for school.
Yeah.
And it was way under what, I had budgeted for it too, so
That's wonderful, and
that was better.
it was just a light year step for the village, just in what it did in everybody's minds, which was great.
It was a yes instead of a no.
Yeah.
So yes, instead of no.
And it was a lot of fun. Like, so Kate is, she's a pretty awesome kid. She was a lot of fun to hang out with. They were on site. We were all kind of hung out the day that they poured. Ryan was great. He had an audience, and the messenger came. Somebody from the courier did come and take pictures, but I don't believe they ever ended up putting anything into the courier. But it was a lot of fun. A lot of good press for the river trail.
Yeah, it was all good.
A lot of fun.
Yeah.
So yeah, those are the projects that are going to be happening next year.
And the flashing crosswalk beacons for.
So
Yeah, I got my list made of those.
that's been Catherine Bennett emailed me today too. It's kind of funny. We've been talking about crosswalks, but
Tell her to become a trustee.
that may not necessarily be all next year, but kind of the thought process is let's make it not all of them at once, but
Yeah, the whole sheet.
but I'd like to see what's out there for grants to purchase those.
I'm
And
sure there probably are some.
I guess in a
Check
perfect.
AARP again.
Yeah, I think you're right. I think I could tie that into that, especially around where like Bismarck Street and the bank is, where those busy
And they're
intersections
really big
are
on
hard.
walkability and safety.
Enosburg is just, I believe that, I was in a meeting last week, gonna be signing on to be an official Safe Routes to School community. So that might also help
Perfect.
leverage with,
Mhm.
because, you know, getting our students to be able to walk
Safely
to
to
school
school.
safely, minimize the amount of vehicles that are on the road from 7:30 to 8:10.
We're
all that will help.
also, this conversation Catherine and I were having today, looking at not just our boring white crosswalk paint, but maybe like a green, reflective more visible.
Yeah.
Lime green in
I'm
Bethlehem,
gonna-
New Hampshire.
They were solid, right?
Solid.
I'm gonna make some calls to the gentleman that typically does our striping for us and make sure that that he can do it, what's the difference in cost, cause it'll be coming down the pipes about maybe doing school colors around the school and their crosswalks, especially Kate's crosswalk, maybe adding in some of the school colors and making
We
it.
just wanna make sure it's really, really visible. That's the thing about the lime green in Bethlehem, is that you cannot miss it. You just can't.
That's just it, it would be the high visibility.
You can still
Yeah.
see it, but like there's
They just,
crosswalks
our
on Pleasant
crosswalk,
Street, you
yeah.
can't
They
tell they're
disappear within
crosswalks.
6 months. They're
Yeah,
gone.
Yep.
so that's something we're in the process of kind of looking
And
into.
the green ones, there is a white stripe on
Mhm.
both outside edges, and then the green
Actually,
in the
I
center.
wish, if
I
I was
mean, there's a
walking
bright
around,
yellow
I
that would
pull it
work,
up.
there's fluorescent orange that would work, anything that will stop people in their tracks and make them realize that it
Yeah,
is a
so-
crosswalk.
That is some of the stuff we're looking at. They're also with adding more. Ken and I were just commenting today how much more we're noticing people using the flashing
Okay.
crosswalk sign that Ken's like, he was laughing because he's like, coming up, and I'm like, what the hell is that flashing light? And he's like, oh yeah, it's the light that we, the light that we installed. So it is being utilized.
It is.
And the one when we get the Main Street Dickinson crosswalk done, I think that's gonna be good. So,
Yeah, that'll-
onto wastewater. The stream crossing G2, which I know means nothing, but down off of Orchard Street, down in the dip. If you're coming from from 6 and stuff and going up through the dip on the right-hand side, we have a stream crossing there. We're looking at basically kind of bringing the pipe up and going over rather than under the brook that's there. We do have some rough numbers on that right now. The flooring is something Brian would like to see kind of done, that they need to replace their flooring. There's some patching and sealing that needs to be done, some of their regular aeration tanks. All of this is not next year. This is part of their over the next 3-year plan, so we'll kind of distinguish that. Church Street, that kind of all ties in with some of the work up above to replace they still have the old clay sewer line up there.
They want all their own sludge?
We're gonna take that off. That was something Brian and I had kicked around. We were having issues with Drumac for a while, but it's
Do they have
everything.
Yeah, sorry, go ahead.
No, everything has kind of leveled out with them, and they've been pretty good to us. So
So
we're gonna.
That's gonna be the good one right there, like as far as expenses. Do either one of those guys have a CDL?
Yeah, they both do.
They do?
We would be able to haul it right now. I think Drumac hauls it to Montpelier. The other place would be Plattsburgh.
I mean, we have a back truck, is it just not big enough, or?
It's not big enough. We'd have to get a different
Maybe
truck
like
to do
more
it.
trips, supposedly one.
But
That's
I
one,
think-
it'd be work.
we kind of kicked that one around with Wayne Elliott, and he doesn't think it's really in our best interest on that one right now. So we are probably gonna scrap that one. But I just haven't taken it off entirely yet. Just fall suppression harnesses when they have to go down in these tanks, kind of getting a better safety plan together for them. But
That can probably be
They're
happening
pricey.
sooner than later.
Yeah,
That's gonna
that
be
sounds
next
like
year.
a really good idea.
they have a system that they do right now, but it would be ideal for them to have these harnesses. They're just, I think to
That
do
sounds like
what
a
they
small
need,
price
it's
to
gonna
pay
be
for somebody's
like
life.
6,000 to 8,000, I think, to get what they need, which in the grand scheme of it is small.
Peanuts.
Onto the electric department, EV chargers, definitely something that's coming down the pipe. We've got the park, maybe thinking about installing a couple around the park.
Pretty good
Do
stuff.
we have a target number we wanna hit? There's funding available. I sat in on a call today. There's money out there for those.
Didn't Enosburg receive a grant or something to get one a while ago?
Not
This
a,
was like a year ago.
For some reason, I thought we got
the
free.
Jolly store was going to be doing it. It wasn't a grant, but the Jolly store was gonna be
And
independently
wasn't,
doing that.
Foncoma gonna do one?
That I don't.
Because he was
The
buying
only
an
one I
electric
heard,
vehicle?
there's a couple individual residences that are putting some up, but the only ones that you guys have probably heard about through the meetings is the Jolly store.
You got one.
We have two at the Quincy, and she got a considerable rebate.
Yes, there's
Are
rate,
they all the same
$500 I think per.
There's like 2 different ones.
Battery backup storage is kind of another one of John's projects that he's working on, another long-term. We're talking with Encore, the company we spoke to tonight, about that. We're looking at redundancy lowering transmission costs and just kind of being more self-reliant
So,
can help. But that's another one of those long-term, we're starting the early specs of that now in locations.
so if we are gonna go through with the solar field, I would assume that there'd be enough capacity in that system to hold the batteries up there.
We probably wouldn't because of, there's two things. One, we're gonna try, and they're supposed to be looking at the engineering, to sneak them up here by the substation. So then you wouldn't have any more transmission costs, it'd be right there. Two, because of that old oil tank up there, it'd be considered brownfield, so there's even more tax credits for them cleaning up a brownfield.
For the diesel generator, there's a
big
huge
silver
tank up
one.
there still.
So we're looking into that as well. The only issue would be just the physical location would be very tight if they can squeeze it all in.
They're like shipping containers is what they
Yeah,
kind
big
of
shipping
will look like
containers, so.
essentially.
How many?
Well, that's
It's like
up
a
there.
quarter of an acre.
Can they
pretty
be
Does any-
cool.
They can't
I
be
don't wanna
buried.
beat a dead horse here, but if you bury them, you can put something on top.
It's
That's
all
all I'm
ledge
saying.
up there. We wouldn't
Yeah, we'd have to
carry up
blast
there.
ledge and
Yeah,
stuff, but we're still working on it, and that'd be the ideal spot. I mean, when they first talked about this,
Yeah.
they thought about by the
Over the garage?
by the highway, yeah, but then we'd have to find places for that
There's
stuff.
Yeah.
backfield.
Yeah, we have that still, I mean,
Right.
right there, that land we own, so we still have that.
They're just gonna be ugly.
Like they
I'll
look
do
just like,
this.
they're not bad actually.
They're not pretty, but they're not ugly.
Right.
It's like
It's gonna be a
shipping
big-
containers
yeah, it's gonna be
essentially,
big-
but
They could be painted.
I thought it
They could, yeah,
Probably,
you should
and, like,
paint them
Could be
green.
a neat community project to
Should
like do
community
murals on
giant
it.
battery posts on top.
Another project is my weatherization project. I have the scope of work done. I'm gonna be, actually, it's probably sooner rather than later, trying to put that out to get an idea of cost so I can work with Efficiency Vermont and put together a plan. So we know how much they'll cover and then how much we would need to cover, so that's in the works. Kendall windows is nothing that has to happen, but something that needs to happen in the next few years. Those are the original windows over there and they're all broken. You can literally, the sills, you can pretty much poke your finger through it. It's all rotted and falling through.
And I suggest you don't hope.
Yeah. So we need to, there's grants available for that, and better insulating the door into the turbine room. There's some stuff that needs a little TLC there, but we do have to stay with historical preservation, so there'll be a few more hoops and obviously more expensive that way, but like I said, there's quite a few grants I've looked at that we can apply for that. John, we had talked a little bit, kind of the substation, that's a long-term, still looking into that. Another one that's been thrown out there is our nice other diesel generator that we have up at 42. What do we want to do with it?
So, this popped in my head. How big of a pain would it be, or how cost effective would it be to maybe convert that generator to burn on natural gas?
Have you been talking to John?
No.
I said that too, like, I don't get.
I don't know what is wrong with it.
Or
I'm pretty
biodiesel.
sure something
Yeah, either of them.
it's gonna need obviously some TLC. Dave could probably, or
Well,
Al
Al
tell-
said there is something wrong with it. I
Yeah,
don't know what.
I don't know what
there
it
is. They did try to fire it up, he said like 8 years ago and something like that, and it wouldn't.
When I was a kid,
And isn't the
before
state trying to get us
Al
to go away from natural gas
Yeah,
too? Like,
then.
Well, natural gas right now is crazy
Right.
high.
yeah.
I don't know if it'll go back down, but yeah, I don't know if natural
but
gas.
just like energy, like efficiency, sustainability wise, isn't like they're trying to not go that route.
Oh, yeah,
Dave would
they
love
want
to
it
just
to be
put
on.
diesel up there and fire that baby back up, but I don't think anybody would.
I'm never gonna have electric heat.
So yeah, I've thought of that too, biodiesel or natural gas, and getting it up, the natural gas up there through all the ledge might be a problem.
That's up to them though, I'm pretty sure.
Yeah, well, that was initially, but now maybe customers have to pay for that.
Yeah, I think we would be on the hook for that. We have it do we have anything? Yeah, we have it in this building.
Yes.
We have it in this building, but it
I'm
does
pretty
not.
sure when I signed up for natural gas, they said they will always be ones to bring it to your residence.
Depends if it's profitable for them now. We couldn't get them to run to my,
It's gotta be 100 foot from, so
Yeah.
your manifold on your house, business, whatever it is, has to be within 100 feet of their line in order for them to do it for free. So if their manifold ends here,
So I also thought about, if we took it out, that could be one of the locations, even though these guys wanna use it for a garage for a truck or something, it could be one of.
they do need
They
the
want it
space.
for their digger trucks.
Yeah, they
over
park
there.
over there.
Or it could be one of the batteries locations.
Right.
The batteries don't need to be undercover, I'm assuming.
They don't.
No.
Something to the outside.
So that's just another kind of on the list to figure out what we're gonna do there.
Well, yeah, maybe look into it, see what's wrong with it, and,
They can explore it.
Yeah.
See it, I mean,
Yeah, it was 8 years ago when they fired it up, there may be somebody new on the horizon somewhere that can figure out what's wrong with it.
yeah, they supposedly brought, I mean, I was talking to Al about it, they found some guy over in New York, cause basically it's a engine to a World War II, aircraft carrier. It's one of the
Can't be
engines.
that complex, I don't think.
No, it's
That's
pretty
it was
simple.
pretty mechanical.
Right.
But they had some guy that used to be a mechanic back in Vietnam or something, and he came over and looked at it and couldn't get it fired up, except it's broken, and that's where it's dead. So,
I'm good with that.
I'm just,
His PTSD kicked in and he left.
must be. So yes, there could be more to it, or less to it, it could be, you know, it's a diesel motor.
Right.
Next up is AMI, as we talked about, and I actually just learned today in the call that it was on this afternoon, and I haven't talked to you about this yet, but one of the new funding sources that has come down the pipe, there is possibly a grant we could explore for AMI. So I want to do some more, I want to contact Department of Energy on that and do a little more research, but it's an option. And then there's the bury the power lines if we go forward with Vital Village is still on there. Digger
That would look
trucks.
so good.
Digger truck still hasn't gone away. That one's still on our radar to talk about.
Does that, Ludlow or whatever, they still have that one?
Yep.
Mhm. Must be getting sick of having it. by now.
They still use it every once in a while, but yeah,
We could use it every once in a
right.
day.
Couple other random ones that I threw on here was looking into a generator for 16 Village Drive, especially when we're talking about upgrading the phone systems, which you guys approved.
There's a big diesel one right up there.
Is it running?
Just gotta get it
Just
going.
get it fixed.
So, that is something, if with changing over the phone systems, everything is voice over IP now, we
You
would
get a
need,
pretty simple on-demand natural gas one.
Well, we would probably go smaller than bigger, because
Right.
once the batteries, we get
There-
battery storage, we'd be able to
right,
tie that in.
but we'll need to do something kind of in the interim,
Yeah.
not that that happens often, but if that happens,
You should have one.
secure shred we talked about, an archive room, we have a lot of old, pretty cool blueprints, plans, all of our infrastructure, we've got a lot of just plans and stuff hanging out, so we wanna look into purchasing the file storage units for them, which are actually rather pricey, but right now, I mean, Gary's closet's full upstairs, and they're everywhere, so just try to kinda get organized, have them all in one place.
Price the gun vault that's a room.
Huh?
Price the gun vault that is a room.
So,
Isn't there a
Have
room
them delivered
upstairs
in front of my house,
that,
cause I can use it too.
isn't there what?
a room upstairs that doesn't have any in it?
Yeah, we
Yeah, we
just
just cleaned it.
cleaned it out.
Does that work? Or is that not there?
Well, up there, with it being the cinder block, is a little more, the building
Fire.
itself is kind of a little more fire, and then we'll obviously have the storage unit.
Is that heated?
Yes. Open house, looking to have that as an annual event, and then we'll kind of get to it a little bit, but more just like community outreach events, doing stuff, which I'll talk to you about one in a little bit, but, and we've been talking Christmas, just kind of, again, we have a really pretty bridge out here, let's try to utilize it and, you know, be a little more community minded, which may need to budget a little bit of money in for some stuff.
And I brought this up before our meeting started, but I would like to bring it up now with everybody that's here. On 3 different occasions today, people came to me to tell me how happy they were with everything from the Facebook page to the open house, to John's visibility, to Abby's going to meetings, and how much different it was now as opposed to how it was before, and how happy everyone is. That we have we have redeemed ourselves considerably, I think, in the eyes of the populace, and that's good. That's very good.
As far as an open house goes, is the Harvest Fest, that seems to be working out well?
Yeah, and they're, John and I went to an EBA meeting this morning, and they're like, give us signs, we'll push people your way. One of the, Katrina from Flower to Flower Bakery is like, give me something, I'll put it in my booth, and so it's been a really good collaboration. We've been trying on our Facebook posts to mention the Harvest Fest too, so it's kind of been a two-way street of kind of advertising for each other, so. Do you guys have any projects that you want to see explored, whether it's this year or next year, but specifically for this year? I don't want to get to the last budget meeting and then have you guys throw something out at us that we don't have time to discuss or figure out, so.
So I've just been trying to think of like capital projects that we know aren't gonna happen this year, but budget for engineering, because the engineering a lot of times takes a year, it takes you into the next fiscal season,
Yeah.
so. The only thing that comes up in my head right now is because it's fresh is that line upgrades and stuff like
Yeah.
that, engineering, but it's all wrapped up in the
Yeah.
cost of that anyway, so something might come up, but
Yeah,
I guess just AMI.
Yeah,
I want, and it's more of like maybe a administrative project right now, like a while ago, Sam's brought up a couple of times, like, kind of inventorying our sidewalks and our roads for like,
So we have done that, and I have a list that Gary has handwritten that I plan on typing up as we get into budgets for you guys. The last, I think you went back 10 years kind of when stuff was done, so I'll have that scheduled. We are also gonna be doing a vehicle rotation schedule. Right now, we don't have one. So that is all in the works right now, and we'll be discussing more as within the next month when we get into budgets more.
could we develop a grading system for our sidewalks, like to be able to like walk through, because there's sidewalks I'd love to see repaired, but just being conscientious of like the tax rate, you know, they can go another year or whatever. But like we have a lot of sidewalks that need some repair, but if like we could like kind of inventory this road sidewalk is a whatever 1 to 5
yeah.
or 1 out of 10, and we can kind of like, and then
You have
that-
1 year left. Before it needs to be
but
repaired.
that like it kind of like puts it like right like kind of like top of the list, and then we can start scouting for continuing the plan with like grant cycles and stuff.
No, I think that's a really good idea to explore. I want to do it with vehicles for the same purpose. You know, right now, we've got a serious aging infrastructure of vehicles, a fleet of vehicles up there that, you know, it's gonna be, nothing's going down in price these days.
No,
So.
and I'd like to get the village into the place where we don't have to finance everything we buy. Because in the past, it's been, all right, we budgeted for this, how much is it gonna cost? Okay, this is what it is, but then you gotta factor all the debt service in for the next 7 years.
We had,
I'd like to get ahead of that where it's, oh, you know, this pickup's coming up to get phased out in its 8th year or whatever.
Yep.
And we have the money saved up to buy it and whatever.
we had that conversation, I specifically had that conversation with Kenny today, for the highway department. Apparently, we used to put money into an equipment replacement fund every year for them, like $10,000 I think, and that got stopped a few years ago to try to offset the tax rate, but that is something that,
We added one.
I don't know about it.
When Matt was here, we added,
so we put into it for maybe a year or two and then it got stopped.
it shouldn't have gotten stopped, it should have got reduced.
It got stopped.
Because it was like a 10,000 and then we bumped it up, I think, you were here,
That
Leonard, you were
sounds,
here.
that sounds.
I thought we bumped it up to like 25
It
for a couple of
didn't-
years
it
and then
didn't
COVID
make-
hit and then we went back down to 15.
It didn't, it has not been in 2020, 21, or 22 budgets. It got
I don't
removed.
remember seeing it last year. But it's,
It,
Right.
somewhere along the lines, it was removed, whether,
Okay, I'd like to fire that back up at some
Yes.
point, but again, we gotta keep our eye on the tax rate.
we're probably looking at next year being another fairly decent increase.
I think people are beginning to realize that they cannot live in a community and expect it to prosper and grow without them also having to contribute to the growth.
I'm
And
confident it
it's
will
been
level out
many
to,
years.
unfortunately, we're kind of doing a little bit of repair and maybe a little better planning and maintenance planning than what we have in the last few years. So I'm confident it's going to level out, but we just may, a couple of years have a little bit of a hit, and then it should level out from there unless something does.
We've been playing catch up for the last 3 years too, so
And
I
we
think
need
it's just
to,
all.
need to get better about planning ahead and planning for the future, like Sam just said, so.
Some of these projects should have been,
Right,
theory, should have happened this come online this year.
right.
Gone right, I think. And that would have saved us quite a bit of money in the lake department this year if we, some of these projects had gone through, so.
Mhm.
Or we're already in the works, if you will.
We are where we are.
Are there any other sidewalk projects, crosswalk projects?
I just want my crosswalk lights.
Definitely want.
Kinda jumped it on us here, I really.
Curly block.
I told you last meeting that you had homework and to be prepared, so don't even give me that, you.
Homework, I don't do homework.
I've got Curly Block, Masonic Temple, Post Office, Dickinson Avenue, and the Armory.
Your list isn't too far off from my list for
Is
those,
there-
Where we need them.
so.
The sidewalk, well, in front of McDonald's.
Yeah.
There was talk about crossing and continuing. Is that gonna happen?
So we need, that discussion, needs to come back up on that whole Elm Street project, cross sidewalk project, and we have to make a decision here pretty quick or we're gonna lose the funding. But did Peter ever get back to you from the state?
Yeah, I got an email, it was,
We need to get on that.
yeah, cause I was emailing for the summer, I don't know if he's on a lot of vacations, I kept getting out of the office, but, cause we looked at a couple different ideas as well.
Can we use the funding that was for where it was gonna go to the other side of the road to do it
I
that
think
way?
they're pretty open for it, we just need to
Sounded like.
have it redesigned. I think
Yeah.
they have this money, they don't want it back, they want us to
Okay.
use it.
Well,
And Bethany from Northwest Regional.
She's been working with us too, so that needs to get moved to the top of your radar to get that.
While we're on the topic of that, real quick, I just wanna say on the way back from work, probably a week ago, there was a group of 4 kids walking from the soccer field. They were on McDermott's side of the road by Napa. So I said, I pulled over and I said, let's see where these kids go. Just go watch them to see where they go. And guess what they did? Got right past the state garage, road into McDermott's parking lot, looking for cars, right over the other side of the road.
Right to
And I
that
said,
sidewalk
"Perfect,
on the
there
other
we go.
side."
That answered my question. So that, I think, might be
I
path of
think,
least resistance.
so they crossed. Okay, same
Like,
thing.
between McDermott's and Napa, in that big stretch. They ran across
Yeah.
the road to McDonald's side, or Tractor Supply side.
They ran to McDonald's side?
Yes.
So that was been kind of my thought, because I was up there looking at that intersection the other day, and that was kind of my thought, rather than trying to kind of do other paths or go up with Water Tower Road. I still think, and this is my personal opinion, if my kids were walking that street, I would rather have them cross on like the Tractor Supply, McDonald's side, cross J-View Drive.
No, that's not what they did. They crossed like from Tractor Supply to McDermott's parking lot.
Oh, okay.
That makes
Going
sense, so,
backwards.
so they didn't go over the
No,
JV
they-
driveway.
They walked straight across Water Tower Road
Okay.
on the Water Tower Road side.
Interesting.
Halfway through McDermott, there's traffic.
They're coming back
Halfway
into
through-
town.
I would feel like
They were headed back into town, and
Okay.
they crossed from McDermott's parking lot to,
Okay.
like, headed towards straight tractors.
Could
towards
we-
Tractor.
I feel like they did that more than likely just because that's where the sidewalk is. If the sidewalk was in front of McDonald's, then they have crossed earlier.
Right, so, well, yeah, I don't know how they got there, but I'm just saying,
Right,
how they
right.
got back was,
Right.
And there's supposed to be like some sort of, the sidewalk would go up to the parking lot, up Water Tower Road, was that part of the
It
conversation?
depends on which way it depends
Okay.
on what we decide.
So
There's-
one way or another, there would be some sort of path sidewalk to get to.
It's either gonna continue along Elm Street, go in front of Napa, cross Water Tower, go in front of the bank and connect that way, or we've talked about going up and behind where the state garage is and
Okay.
having them cross up into the upper. Right now, we have no definite plan,
Well,
which we.
the latest revision, because, yeah, there was a bunch of
Right,
not good ideas before. But the latest revision that you
Was to go
got back
up
to
and-
us with was to cross right,
yeah,
pretty much where those kids cross.
yes.
Would it make sense to invite a couple of high school students to give some feedback?
Or we
Does
just
that-
keep watching them for a while.
While
Yeah.
Sam's stopping.
I mean, I got, yeah,
No, we don't want them to know we're watching them. We just, and then we'll, literally, we have to like,
And
okay,
Bethany-
16 of them went this way,
Right.
and 3 of them went
And-
Well, it
this
would
way.
be, it would
No,
be
in all
really
reality,
helpful to see some of that, but like
Bethany-
in some cases they're making those choices based on traffic patterns and not
Yes.
preference.
it was
True.
traffic.
So I'm really
Yep.
wondering like if we asked a couple of high school students.
Bethany can actually have an intern sit up there and count pedestrians and what are people doing.
But again, that's still
Understand.
following they would probably be making decisions based on traffic patterns and not like
Personal
Accessibility.
preference.
Well,
accessibility, yeah.
yeah, but if you, once you put a crosswalk there, you stop traffic. So it's wherever is convenient for you to cross is ideally where you want the crosswalk.
Mhm.
But that's the problem of how close it is to the intersection and yada yada, 35 and 25.
Who
So
owns it? Yeah.
right, once you step onto that crosswalk, theoretically traffic stops.
Right.
So anywhere in that stretch, I think would be appropriate, and then have them just cross water tower instead of.
I think it's safer to cross JV Drive than Water Tower Road.
Well, that
Being
would,
there all day, watching
But
cars come
People
through.
making
but the state
rights out of there.
won't go for that at all, because remember, right after that intersection, it's not ours anymore.
Right.
Because yeah, I would
I
say
thought
just
the
keep it
state
going
said they
past
revisited it.
McDonald's.
Yep, it
And
would
then
be
you-
ideal.
As a
Although
parent,
the
I would rather have
trouble-
them go JV Drive and then over
Correct.
up there and
Yeah.
stay away from that water
Get a
tower
flashing,
road and.
flashing pedestrian
Yeah.
lane. You're
I thought
crossing
the
Main
state
Street
said they'd
once.
revisit that and discuss having a crossing there.
I'm fairly certain last time we said we got to know, and they've been hard nosed all the way up until that last. But
They
did
seemed a
redo
little
the
more
traffic study.
receptive the last conversation to kind of hear us out a little bit, but I think ideally they don't wanna mess with that intersection, but I think they seemed more receptive to having a conversation about it.
And I would love to, I would like to see the cheese factory come out there.
Yes, and that's
Exactly.
Lots of people.
and then I mean yeah, in a perfect situation we would have some sort of traffic control at that intersection.
Right.
And then yeah, East Street, Franklin Foods would come out on J-View. Yeah.
And then you could even do some kind of, if we can work with them, could try to meet up with them, then maybe there's something back there behind Ken's apartments or off of East Street. So it's a little bit of a bike path through that section, so it can, as I look at it, I'm trying to tie that great asset
Are you
in.
like connecting it to the rail trail too? I don't know
Yeah.
I don't know if we, like the, wetlands and stuff like that, if
There
that could be
isn't.
approved, but, oh my goodness, every single time, I'm like, oh, if only I could just go down the rail trail and go behind Hannaford to get up there. And then,
It isn't
be so
some people
great.
have said that,
But
I
it's,
think because they just don't want to go through with it, but it's
Oh.
not a wetlands.
Interesting, I
it's
always heard that
not.
was the barrier.
No, it's not.
That would be a really amazing connection.
The only barrier there would be a dog once you got up by the back of Hannaford's.
You wouldn't believe how many times a tractor trailer truck comes up in front of my house and he tries to turn
Takes fire.
and then they back up and they go turn like at McDermott's.
Yeah.
They try to turn and sometimes they just can't do it.
They
And
do that at my house too, they've knocked over the fire hydrants
Yeah.
so many times, there's now a boulder there, so they don't.
Sometimes you can almost tell when it's a new driver.
Yeah, it's not
Or
ideal.
they speed past the road, put their brakes on, back up the road, then make a turn.
It's kind of, it worked back in the day, but it's a fairly odd location for such a
Yeah.
industrial operation.
Well, I mean,
The drivers
it's
are not
just
happy about it.
tails.
They don't
Yeah.
like
In the
it.
back of the
Horses and
pickup truck.
buggies or whatever.
Yeah.
so, any other projects you want out of, to stop this conversation, but just keep this train moving here?
Nope.
Anybody,
I got
if you, feel free to email me, but no, you are gonna have a deadline this year for these projects.
Yes, ma'am. Yes,
Put
ma'am.
my
Alright.
foot down.
Will do.
Yes,
Okay, if that's it for capital
That's it.
projects, we'll move on to manager's report.
I'll make it quick. So open house again this Saturday. So if you can come down, these are nice t-shirts we had made up for it.
Oh, cool.
Nice.
We'll And then we have a bunch of pictures too that we're getting.
Didn't even ask our size.
Yeah. I guess everybody.
None of that was in the budget.
We got a bunch of pictures we're gonna be hanging up and stuff outside and we'll be putting in.
And then these pictures will go in the hallway here. that we
Yeah.
talked
Good,
about
that's
after.
great.
One of the frames and stuff.
Very cool.
And we did get a bunch of swag in to hand out.
I don't think this is the same group I joined.
So
Where's
it's
all this positivity coming from?
it's looking pretty good at this point. Like Abby said, we got the bridge cleaned up. And we got the logistics down. I mean, I don't know how many people are showing up yet, but I think we have a lot of logistics down and so forth. Again, you're all invited to stop in at some point if you have time. The rate increase, I don't know if Abby, you wanted to speak to this at all, but yeah, the rate increase did kick in. So we, as we back bill, we should be seeing that in October billing.
Yeah, the way our billing works, like the bills that just went out for the village were for August, so our September consumption, you don't actually get billed for until if you're in the village. So, the beginning of October, so you won't actually see, you didn't see this last bill, but you will see it in your
I'll
bills
put my
that you
blinders
get.
on when I get to the next one.
It shouldn't be too bad, it's only 1.97%, so it's not gonna be too drastic, but,
It is what it is.
we had to kind of be careful with the timing of that. If we included some August days, we run the risk of complaints being filed, so we are kind of playing the safe bet.
Yep.
So,
Yeah.
that will, everything went through, we had no issues from the Department of QC on that.
Good.
Yep, so we're good there. That's all I had. Does anybody have anything else? I don't think off the top of my head.
Well, thank you, John.
I just have one observation that I made, and I don't know if anyone else has made it or not. Maybe it's just because I'm so short. Literally. Vertically challenged. When I drive out of J-View Drive to turn left, I have to be on what would be a crosswalk that doesn't show up anymore with my vehicle, or I cannot see around the Tractor Supply sign. That
Yeah,
V-shaped sign that's there,
Uh,
can't even see
I
around.
think it's
It's like,
temporary,
I'm doing this?
but, yeah.
Well, it's temporarily dangerous.
It's,
Well, I
yeah.
can email them and have them move back.
Even if they just moved it back
I
6
can
feet,
email
I think, it would make a big difference.
the
I
general.
mean, I realize it, but I mean, I
No,
I have my head in the roof, my seat's so high so I can see where I'm going.
Yeah. Notice that too.
Other business?
Yeah, I've got two things. First, I sent an email to everybody, not sure if everybody got to the email this afternoon, but, some different community organizations are doing a meet and greet for, candidates that are on the November ballot, and it happens to be the start time is half an hour before our next trustees meeting. So I was wondering if we wanted to at least push our meeting start time back to 7, or maybe if we could do a different day that week to give people the opportunity to not have a conflict between two important government opportunities.
7 would work for me. I know it's pushing it a little bit late, but maybe we can keep our agenda.
Well,
Does anybody,
I'll come for the meeting because I hate politics and I have to be at the other meeting.
I know for one, at least I would like, it's really nice to be able to at least hear some of these people that are running to say a few words, because
Usually you
I don't know
hear
who they
anything.
are. Yeah, like some of the people on the ballot, I don't know who they are, they don't have online profiles, so it'd be good to be able to do that, and also just for, in case anybody else needed to be on an agenda, they could also go to that as well.
I don't have an issue.
I can make 7 work.
7 o'clock it
Okay.
is.
Cool, thank you
I'll
so
probably forget
much.
to show up at 6:30.
Then you
Well,
Well, then we'll just go, oh my God, Sam is
I'll probably be here, so it's all good.
Where is everybody?
No quorum's right.
The other one is I was like I meant to bring this up a while ago, but just didn't have the bandwidth for it. One of our Vermont Leagues of Cities and Towns emails, was an opportunity for, they call it an engaging communities cohort. So the idea is that they were going to be working together, bringing some municipalities together to talk about like inclusion, and a lot of the work that we're doing right now, we've been really, really trying to do quite a lot in the past couple months. But they were going to be working on people together. I was going to pitch that we have a team there, team go, but the deadline is Thursday to come up with a letter and who would go and figure out the plan, and it's a 6-month thing. So I'm just bringing it up tonight. If somebody's really
Is it an
thinks that-
evening thing?
One of them is during the day, and then there's 7 hours of workshops over 6 months. So like one of them is a day long on October 7th, and then the other ones are like Zoom meetings, I think. And they're looking for 2 people from the municipality to participate, which you could also have like an alternate in case there's conflicts. But like I said, I didn't put it on the asked to be on the regular agenda because I feel like it's kind of a lot to fully unpack and make a decision when the deadline is Thursday.
Just a rare day.
Gotta write a letter real quick.
But I'm shortly bringing it up because it's possible they might extend the deadline, 'cause they've already extended the deadline for the application, or it might come up again in another year. So just something to think about, and just again, it's just to help municipalities work together to be inclusive with their communities, reach out to constituents maybe that aren't always getting the notices, and helping to make sure that they're invited and included, and we're looking out for all of everybody within our communities. So I just kind of want to throw it out there so it's on our radar to think about if we see it again.
You're gonna see some of that too with that set plan,
With what?
the set plan, the electric, I mean, that's one department, but you'll see a lot of that. It's written in there a lot about affordability, reaching out, and inclusion and all of that. It's, so, not saying we're gonna like put it out tomorrow with it, but as we integrate some solar and other projects into the plans over the next few years, that's gonna be part of it. So it's kind of in the back of my brain of how we, trying to think differently, not because Bobby can't afford his power bill, we just reduce it for him. Like, how do we, again, as a community, if there's ways we can reduce the overall energy consumption and then increase what we produce, maybe everybody's bill goes down. And look at it more of a holistic view of it than just, okay, we gotta cut Bob's electric because he can't afford it this month or whatever.
Right, yeah.
So I mean, that's how I look at it is, what can we do? I mean, do we add more solar? Do we add, what do we do? And that's what I'm trying to figure out, but, and it's coming, but again, I want to look at it as everybody benefits from it.
Yeah, for
Right.
sure, and that's like one piece of like the whole puzzle. It's like, but like when we're also sitting there looking at projects that we wanna do, there's only so many lenses that us at the table right now are looking at, and like when you think of the steps to make Enosburg like the best community, again, there's demographics that aren't at the table, and why aren't they here? Why aren't they either sitting back here or there or emailing us? So it's like some of the other part of it too. So it's just, I think that there are opportunities like this to have other conversations, but the municipalities just might be able to help all these projects move forward.
I have 2 quick things with paper out then, Heather. One is, you all have my pretty little flyer I made today.
It's a
I
very
saw that.
nice flyer.
So I would like to have kind of a light up the bridge or decorate the bridge Halloween sort of thing this year. I would like you guys to be the judges. It's gonna be a decorate your pumpkin, so it doesn't necessarily have to be a card if somebody wants to paint, whatever. What I would do is have everybody drop off their pumpkins on October 25th, which we have a trustee meeting that night. So that would be part of our agenda, so you don't have to come in a different time, and you guys would judge the pumpkins, 3 categories. My goal is to go to a few businesses in town and get maybe like a gift certificate, or try to team up with some businesses for the prizes, so we're not spending any money. At our next meeting, you're gonna have a park request for a community Halloween celebration in Lincoln Park. And my thought would be that I plan on hopefully bringing my kids to that anyway. So, you know, being there, we can announce the winners that night and then we'll put it up on the Facebook page. But then to also have the pumpkins on display that Friday through kind of the end of the day, Halloween. I don't want to leave it up for the whole week. That just makes me nervous that somebody will be a jerk and do something to the pumpkin. So kind of over that weekend after you guys have judged them, we'll light up or line them up on the bridge and make it decorative.
No, I can't decide if I wanna do a pumpkin or be a judge, I can't do both.
You have to be a judge, you're a trustee. So.
You can do it,
Vote
just
for your own.
put somebody else's name on it, that's fine.
Yeah, so this is just a flyer I put together today quickly. We can change it if there's anything you guys want to change. My thought process would be to get a stack of these over to the school. I know they send home a lot of time weekly packets, but maybe for the elementary school levels and even high school to kind of send this home, and then we'll do our other advertising. If people want to take part in it, it'll kind of be my baby to coordinate, so I'll deal with.
So you think of lining them all up on the bridge? I think that
I
would be
honestly,
That'd be cool.
we'll see.
Yeah.
And
I'd like to
right
put some
around
down in the water.
Start again.
Or not in the waterfall,
But
but
down
depending
the
on how
the
high.
dry
Yeah.
water. Yeah.
Because I was telling Abby.
Yeah, that would be cool. Oh, that's a good idea.
Instead of a duck race, we can have a
So-
pumpkin float.
Just gets a little more community involvement. Again, looking at ideas. We've got this beautiful bridge of flower and lights. Let's utilize it. Let's draw more attention to it. Like I said earlier too, I'm already talking with Shauna Lovewhite and EBA. You know, they do their big Christmas light thing, but maybe we do something. You know, like let's light up the bridge a little bit more decorative.
And
That would be
EVA
cool.
had actually already thought last year that we wanted to come down further, and that must be, we could, back then it was like, well, must be we can go and see them and ask them if they won't let us do something to the bridge. But I think if a collaborative effort will be just fantastic.
Yeah, so with your permission right now, tonight, I just kind of want the green light that I can go ahead with this little project and you guys are gonna be my judges.
Orange and green one.
Okay, perfect. The other thing I just wanted to mention, Susie asked me to mention from the EDA meeting this morning, the bandstand. They have some money, with the EBA after, they would like to change the railing on the bandstand to match, to look with the Doughboy.
Mm-hmm.
I've already called Mansfield Fence Company, which was Alderbrook Fence Company that did the Doughboy fence, and have asked John if he will come down to meet with me
Perfect.
and give me some figures. I've also told him that we don't own the bandstand. We don't know if we have permission to even do it or not, but it sometimes takes John quite a while to get going, and now he's gotta come from Cambridge to Enosburg instead of East Enosburg to Enosburg. So I did that this afternoon.
So, not looking to have a full discussion on it tonight, just asked to kind of plant the seed for you guys that that's something the EBA is looking into. And they also are talking about maybe flower boxes up there, and we had that discussion where I'm like, all this stuff sounds great, but my concern that I expressed was just not having all of like the maintenance and upkeep of that stuff fall on our highway department. Like, we wanna do these projects with you, but we have a pretty full plate.
We have
as
a
it
pretty
is.
damn good
Let's-
group of volunteers, excuse my English.
And we actually, Ellen got on the horn, UVM has a program, we talked about
Master
high
gardener
school,
interns.
we have a lot of stuff, so there's a lot of, that was just my kind of concern. I expressed like, yeah, we're on board for like talking about all these projects, but also be thinking about help with the maintenance, because it does add, it seems like a small thing, but it does add a
Yeah,
lot.
the
And I know-
flowers. is-
Right.
The Enosburg Elementary School principal has talked to me and was just kind of wondering about like elementary students doing
Yep.
flowers and stuff in the park.
Yeah, we usually, I know we have them help us with the bridge. We also, there's the fountain in Maple Park that we had some leftover flowers we planted because there's no water in the fountain. We're definitely,
Now-
we're gonna make that, keep kind of going with the flower theme and that, and make that even prettier next year. And then there has been talk about adding more like planters of flowers around the park, so there's,
Really
I got a
nice.
bandstand question. Whatever happened to the stairs in front of that?
They got removed
Yeah.
a couple of decades ago. The big
Why?
wide stairs that I wouldn't have a clue.
If anybody attended graduation, it was a cluster trying to get kids up that one narrow flight of stairs on the back of that.
Yep.
They had to line up and wait on the bandstand
walk
and then
all the
kind
way
of
up.
single file down. And I
Yeah,
got
whatever.
thinking about it, I was like, what
Yeah,
happened to
I-
the stairs
I
on the front of
look.
that?
Yeah, every time I picture the
It
bandstand,
was
I think
20 or
the
25
round
years ago,
bandstand with
probably.
the stairs in the
Yeah,
front.
they kind of went like
My
this.
Skokie graduation last year, and I remember we went up the back, and I
Yeah.
didn't see the stairs in front, yeah.
And I mean, if we're thinking about getting the railing changed, it may be time
Move
to
the
think
stairs
about
back.
Think about-
putting some stairs back in the front of it.
Yeah, I think that's a really good idea.
Yeah,
If I can go back to Maple Park for just a second, I just had that other thought, and you mentioned the fountain in Maple Park. There's also 2 small sidewalk sections that go through the park. Is there any way, I wonder, if we could include that in some of our sidewalk work and the
So-
Maple Park work?
Ken and I had that discussion today because after I left the EBA meeting, Susie mentioned a couple other things about the park. I went and drove around the park, and one side is definitely pretty rough, it's asphalt. So Ken is gonna look at what's the best way. Do we wanna pave it? Do we wanna just, mulch it, make it a path? Like, what do we wanna do? What'll look good? So that is in the works at looking at revamping
Because
that.
that will look much better.
Yeah, so
And it's a
that's,
lovely park, it really is. I mean, we don't notice it much
and there's a
because we
stump,
look at Lincoln Park.
there's a big stump in the middle that's on the works to get that done. So we had that conversation, and there'll be a little kind of CLC stuff that we're gonna add to the game plan next year for Maple Park.
the guy that does our routine line clearing, Cole
Yep.
Hollow, he's got a stump grinder.
Yes, they had talked to him initially, he just didn't make it here to do it. Ken's gonna reach out to him again, as Jordan St. Pierre, I believe,
Yes.
Cold Hollow.
He's like in
And-
my store daily, I can give him a.
Yeah,
He's a good kid.
so that is gonna be in the works to give Maple Park a little TLC.
Yeah.
A little bit of a facelift.
Yeah, no, the railings, staircase,
That's a really good
and
idea.
bandstand, yeah.
The, what we as EVA, what we are looking at is to hopefully replace the pipe railings or whatever they are with the same type and look of railing that the fence is a fence. And I'm thinking that John will know if he has something that is compatible as a railing, but that would match the fence.
So would this be a project that we'd want to include in next year's budget?
Well,
they're
Sounded like
pretty-
EVA
We will be,
had
Yeah.
funds
we will
to
be
do it.
paying
We may have
for
to
it.
put
Right
stairs
now,
in.
Yeah, the stairs, I mean,
That's a minimal fee. but-
yeah, those could be, the first ones that we had were wooden.
Yeah.
Yeah, you
Just,
would.
someone had built them.
Yeah,
And
it could
I'm
be
sure
a
that,
set
you know.
funder for.
But
Well,
EVA will be kicking
graduation,
in.
They didn't
all the
go
money
up,
we
there
can get our hands on.
was on the front.
certain
No.
percent, you have to have a-
Well, where did the kids go get the diplomas?
The bandstand, but they had to
But
go
I
up
think
the back side by
It
the,
was
where
like
they have the
15
porta
feet
potties.
wide before, 10 feet wide.
That's the only set of stairs onto that bandstand now.
Oh. When my David graduated, they were all sitting in the park and they walked up the stairs on
In
the
the front,
front.
but those stairs are
Those
gone.
stairs are gone. That's what I'm saying, like, I never
Yeah.
paid any attention to it
Yeah,
until I went to graduation, I said, wait a minute, where are
Yeah,
the
Was it
stairs?
because they like rotted out, or is it like a safety thing trying to make sure that it was closed off?
There were times in the past when sometimes it was just a thing. It wasn't a safety thing or an aesthetic thing, it was just a thing.
Oh, so
Kinda
you're
like when
saying
the old
about-
original fountain went, down over the bank. Sometimes things just happen.
Yeah, even if the stairs were on, the easiest thing to do would just be slap up a railing and, because I'm assuming there was a set off the back.
There's one set, I think they're concrete.
Yes,
So
the
they were
stairs
there.
in the back.
They probably just like, throw a railing up.
Right.
We already got those
Call it a day.
stairs.
Yeah, exactly. So,
And we would include the stairs that are coming down in the back and the safety railing that would have to be there to match everything else, and so that, would all be done properly.
okay, do it, okay.
That's all I have.
Good stuff. Anybody else? We had a lot of the business tonight, that was good. Good stuff.
Busy.
I just, does Abby get a birthday coming up?
You and your damn calendar.
Lions Club calendar.
And then my damn grandmother for putting me on it. Yes, my birthday's Sunday.
Well, happy
Happy
birthday in
birthday.
advance.
Thank you.
It's
What day is it?
Saturday?
Monday?
No, Lori's
Is that
taking Monday off
Sunday?
now, I don't know when yet.
What day you got Friday?
I didn't wanna take off Fridays, I didn't know what we were gonna
I
do
enjoy
with
it.
that.
Just offering it.
We'll see. I think my game plan's gonna take like a middle of the weekday off when my kids are at school and my husband's gone and I can actually be in the house by myself. Quiet,
It's a nice feel.
quiet.
Smart move.
That's my mom plan.
All right, so that's it for other business. We have a little bit in executive. Let me get my. I lost it. All right. So I need a motion to go into executive session for the purpose of discussing negotiations in which premature public knowledge may compromise the position of municipality and for the discussion of personnel.
Move. Second.
Eli, the first, Sandy, the second. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, nay.